all hear me? Okay, welcome to the conference on Echoes of Protest, Visions of Praxis. As you have seen, we have 3 days of themes broken into echoes of change, enabling equitable practices, and then forging our future. So it's a conference that we're focusing on participation and praxis. And whilst I focus on praxis, it would be remiss of me not to mention that we have within our midst a former WIT student, ex-WIT student, who demonstrates that bold, courageous notion of praxis as she sets sails on the seas today on the global flotilla. So that's one of the youngest members on the flotilla who's trying to end the siege from the School of Audiology there. So a proud moment for the WIT student body. Okay, just a few house rules today as we start the conference. So we have about 190 people registered online and face to face. I'm hoping we have more people come through to fill the room. I just wanted to mention that on the program, you'll notice that we have links for each of the sessions. So people have been asking, where's the MS Teams links? They're all on the session there. Hyperlinks, please click on that. And then there's a Padlet. There's a Padlet link too. So the Padlet link is our endeavor to take the conversation beyond the conference. Professor Jonathan Jansen just had a little rant on Facebook this morning where he condemned all the conferences that are happening worldwide and these exotic places and what's the worth of it. And it's precisely that's why we want to ensure that we take meaning out of these conversations. That's not just talk shops, but that we use that Padlet and ensure that that becomes a living document as we continue throughout the year. So I do encourage people to please make use of that Padlet link. We have breakaway sessions, Senate House Basement 1 and Basement 5. Those are the 2 rooms, okay, that we have allocated for our breakaway sessions. Please do sign up outside. There's a little board there. You could sign up, and we'd like to have an equitable distribution. I know it's a lovely setting here, but please ensure that we go to the other rooms too. People have prepared for those sessions. Okay, and then the last session today, we have a 45-minute roundtable discussion in Senate House Basement 1. I think that's B1. We won't be returning to plenary, so we will close off, and then we'll start tomorrow fully online. And then Thursday, we'll rejoin here in this room. Okay, and then one last thing, sorry, presentations haven't been sent. Could you please send them to sibongilahoro@wits.ac.za, as well as perhaps easier, senateroom@wits.ac.za, especially for the presentations that will be shown here, screen in this room. It's really easy. Our TK sitting there at the back will hand out a little clicker and you can then manipulate your presentation. Okay, now it gives me great pleasure to hand over to our director, Gerrit Wissing, without whose help none of this would have been possible. So over to you, Gerrit. Thank you.
Good morning, university teachers and students, and welcome to this gathering of champions of transformative learning. As director of the Center of Learning, Teaching and Development, I have the privilege of opening our 2025 conference with a simple recognition. We are here because our students demand we be here. 10 years ago, the Fees Must Fall and Rose Must Fall movements did something extraordinary. Students refused to accept that financial barriers should determine educational futures. They rejected curricula that rendered their identities invisible. They demanded that we stop treating transformation as tomorrow's promise and start making it today's practice. The echoes of those protests still call to us, but are we merely hearing the fading remnants of a moment that passed? Or are we hearing the still persistent demand for educational experiences worthy of human dignity? I would argue that we are hearing something more profound, the sound of our own ability to bring about the desired transformation calling us forward. Look around this room, whether physical or virtual. You are here because you have chosen to answer that call. The work represented in our conference program proves that remarkable things are happening. Colleagues are co-creating curricula with students not for them. Learning experiences rooted in Ubuntu philosophy and African ways of knowing exist. Digital innovations that breach rather than widen gaps are implemented. Assessment practices that honor diverse forms of knowledge. Community partnerships that make education relevant to real struggles. This is not mere compliance with transformation mandates. This is courageous teaching in action. But let's be honest about where we stand. 10 years later, we still see students carrying the weight of systemic disadvantage into our classrooms. We still have curricula shaped by colonial epistemologies. We still have teaching practices that sometimes liberate, but too often perpetuate inequality. The difference now is this: we can no longer claim we don't know better. Our students have taught us. They've shown us that access without epistemic justice is hollow. They've made it clear that our teaching practices are never neutral. They are either part of the problem or part of the solution. Over the next 3 days, we will move from echoes to praxis. We will share not just what we have learned, but what we have done. We will explore not just what has changed, but what is changing now. The students who disrupted our comfort 10 years ago were not asking us to do them a favor. They were demanding that we become the educators we were claiming to be. They were insisting that we align our practices with what we said our principles were. Today, we gather to honor that demand and to commit to the work it requires. 10 years ago, our students made us a promise. They would not accept educational experiences that diminish their humanity. Today, 10 years later, I ask that we make them a promise in return. A promise that we will not stop transforming until every student experiences the dignity of authentic learning. The echoes of protest have become visions of praxis. Our work is now to make those visions the everyday reality of learning and teaching at WITS. Dear colleagues, welcome to a conference that honors our students' past and present struggles by continuing to hold ourselves accountable for creating the opportunity for their transformation. The work we have started must continue. Thank you. I now hand to Fatima, who will introduce our opening address, and then we begin our journey in this conference together. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues, students, honored guests, and friends. It is a privilege to welcome you to the 2025 CLTD conference, hosted here at WITS University. We gather under the banner of our theme, Echoes of Protest, Visions of Praxis, shaping equitable futures through learning and teaching. This theme is not merely a poetic phrase. It is a call to remembrance, to accountability, as Dr. Wissing said, and to action. It asks us to consider the echoes of those powerful student protests of 2015, Fees Must Fall and Roads Must Fall, that resounded not only across our campuses, but across the nation and the globe. They forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about who higher education serves, what knowledge it privileges, and whose voice it silences. 10 years on, those echoes still reverberate. They call to us as educators, scholars, and leaders to ask questions: what have we done in response? How far have we come in transforming our curricula, our teaching practices, our institutions, and even our society? And perhaps most importantly, how do we continue to work with urgency and integrity to forge equitable futures for generations yet to come? This conference is an invitation to wrestle with those questions together. Over the next 3 days, we will reflect, we will debate, and we will share ideas and innovations. But we will also be called to praxis, to action. Because if protest echoes in words and in memory, praxis is its embodiment. The translation of vision into practice, to demand into transformation. Our program has been thoughtfully designed to take us on a journey through three critical stages. Today, on day one, our focus is on echoes of change. We will revisit the student demands from fees must fall and roads must fall, examining critically how institutions and individuals have responded in the years since. On day two, tomorrow, we move into enacting equitable practices. Here we will showcase current practices that are making tangible difference in classrooms, curricula, and communities. Practices that are inclusive, student-centered, decolonized, and digitally engaged. On day three, we turn towards our future. We will collectively imagine and co-create a vision for higher education in the next decade, one that is grounded in justice, relevance, and partnership. This journey, from echo to enactment to imagination, mirrors the arc of transformation itself. We cannot move forward without remembering where we have come from. We cannot rest in reflection alone. We must enact change. And we cannot stop at the present. We must envisage our future and shape our desires. This morning, then, it is fitting that we begin with the voices of the students themselves. The panel of Fees Must Fall activists, I hope they're here or they're online, Tato Mokwenya, Shazia Ibrahim, Zaman Tunzi, and Onhle Nshingila, will reflect on the movement 10 years on. Their voices remind us that transformation was never gifted from above, it was demanded from below. It is fought for, often at great personal cost, and it continues to require vigilance, solidarity, and courage. So my first big thank you is to the students for coming today and for sharing with us in this all-important session. Later today, we will hear from academics and students working together to bridge community and classroom, to co-create teaching, research, and scholarship across borders and disciplines. These sessions remind us that transformation is not only about critique, but also about creativity. It is about finding new ways to connect our lecture halls with our communities, our theories with our practices, and our disciplines with one another. In our breakout sessions this afternoon, which I hope everyone stays for, we tend to lose numbers as soon as we move venues. But in these sessions, we will engage in deeply relevant conversations. We will consider multilingualism and access to higher education, a pressing question in a country where linguistic diversity is a richness often ignored in favor of English dominance. We will revisit the meaning of curriculum relevance in a decolonial era, reflect on how professional identities are formed in times of protest and upheaval, and how mentorship can be used to support early career academics in South Africa. Colleagues, these are not abstract debates. They are lived realities in our classrooms, our offices, and our campuses. So we have to ask ourselves by the end of today, whose futures are we preparing our students for? On day two, tomorrow, we turn to the present, to the practices that are already reshaping our classrooms and institutions. To start the day, we are privileged to hear from Professor Dina Zoe Belugi, who will give us our keynote address and will reflect on how educators commemorate the calls for fallist movements and what it means to decolonize knowledge a decade later. She will also remind us that remembrance is not passive and that we all have actions to take. We will also hear from the SRC president, Ms. Nombolelo Chia, whose leadership embodies the ongoing presence of student activism and whose vision calls us to address Africa's challenges with Africa's solutions. The rest of the day will consist of interdisciplinary chats, roundtable discussions, conversations about assessments and engagement with AI, workshops and showcases on pedagogy through storytelling, and many other sessions. Each of these sessions will ask us to move beyond theory into practice. How do we enact equity today in the classrooms and the lecture halls where we stand? On our final day, we we lift our gaze to the horizon. With a keynote address from Professor Emnet Tadesi, his words will challenge us to move beyond compliance, beyond corporatization, beyond the unfinished business of transformation, towards a vision of universities as ethical, responsible, socially embedded institutions. We will also hear a poem, an I Am poem, from Mbali Zondo, who will speak to personal power, collective identity, the journey of struggle and resilience, and the voice of a new generation of scholars and leaders. Throughout day 3, again, we will engage in conversations about learning, reconceptualizing instructional time through learner engagement, humanizing technology and curriculum, rethinking social work, and learning in other languages. These sessions invite us to imagine and to begin enacting the university of the future, a university that is responsive, humane, inclusive, and transformative. Colleagues, students, friends, this conference is not an end in itself. It is a waypoint for a much longer journey. The echoes of protest will not fade, nor should they. They are reminders that education is never neutral. It either produces or reproduces inequality, or it challenges it. It either maintains the status quo or it transforms it. Our task as scholars, educators, and students is to ensure that the echoes of protest are met with visions of praxis, that the demands of students are not only remembered but enacted, and that the future we imagine is the future we start building now. Over the next 3 days, I encourage you to engage deeply, listen generously, speak boldly, and allow yourselves to be challenged. And most importantly, leave this conference with not only ideas, but commitments. Commitments to actions that will make a difference in your classrooms, in your curricula, and in your institutions. Finally, on behalf of the Center for Learning and Teaching Development, Academic Affairs, and the Senior DVC, Professor Roxana Osman, I welcome you warmly to CLTD 2025. Thank you for being part of this journey. May the conference inspire us, provoke us, and move us closer to shaping the equitable futures for our students and our societies. Thank you to our CLTD organizing team and others in the university for putting everything together. I look forward to the next 3 days of engagement and welcome. Thank you for your time.